Good afternoon. Welcome to another episode of How to Speak Maintenance. My name is Jason Fein, and with me is Becca Ramati from TAAEF. Hello, Becca.
Hi, Jason.
Yeah, today we have a very special guest with us. His name is Mark Cukro, and he is the founder of Service Team Training and MaintenanceVideos.com. So welcome, Mark.
Thank you very much for having me, and welcome, everyone.
Yeah. Among Mark's accolades, he is a training guru. He's a jiu-jitsu coach and has 15 years of industry experience, as well as 18 years of being an independent speaker, correct?
That is correct.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. With your maintenance director experience at Colonial Home, I'm sure you're going to have a ton of experience and knowledge to be able to share with us today. So,
well, I'll do my best. And, for everyone watching, I did start in the field just like everyone else, at the most entry-level position. And I moved my way up over the years. And now this is my 18th year in business. So I do understand what it's like to be in the field.
That's great. Well, Mark, I'd love to get started. So I would love to hear your thoughts on the current job market and how tenure could have an impact on the shrinking labor market.
Sure. So I'd like to give, from my perspective, an overview, and then we can drill down. So if you just look at the different generations in the workforce itself, just from the population numbers, between boomers and X, there's a dip in the population. And it depends what report you read, but it's in the millions and it's significant. So as we have that dip in the population, of course, we have millennials entering the workforce now and Z, but there's still that gap that moves across the timeline of the workforce. In addition to that, during Generation X phase, especially, vocational training started to really exit the school and the academic systems for many reasons. But many of us that have been around seasoned, that have been around for a while, know and remember we had an auto shop and a wood shop and a machine shop and all of these different vocational trainings in our education systems. It was kind of standard. And now they're almost non-existent. So if you take that between the dip in the population and the change of perspective that resulted from the wave of technology entering the workforce, it puts the service industries, specifically us, in a dilemma. And so the trending shows that when people start to get around, let me read this to make sure I get the specifics. Between the age of 45 and 50, about 15% of people in the service industry that work on physical trades, like we do in maintenance in the apartment industry, exit the workforce. And then the next large increment, and this is a much bigger increment, is between the age of 50 and 55. Between 30 and 33%, depending on what study you read, exit. So by the time that our workforce in the service industries is in their 50s, almost a third to half of them are exiting the industry. Wow. And here we are trying to fill those positions.
It's astounding. I mean, because if you have that deficit of skilled labor, you got to be able to market properly to the incoming, labor force to make sure that you're getting the best talent, correct?
It is. And, if you look at like anything else, if you just talk to your grandparents and your parents and your kids or people of different age groups, they look at life differently. They look at the world differently. They look at technology and they look at the way that we communicate, and they even use different language. And so if we're going to market to people to bring them into our workforce, it might make sense to communicate in different styles that may appeal more so to that one group or another, instead of just cast a broad net, because not all nets catch all fish, right? And so what we're doing now is we're struggling genuinely to compete over a shrinking labor pool. But the marketing that we're using, in my opinion, is that we're kind of approaching it like we market for prospects, and we just have the same cookie cutter software based approach with the same templates, the same verbiage, the same acronyms and abbreviations. And that's supposed to be good for all of the generations that we're trying to recruit. And I think there's a significant opportunity for us to get better results if we vary that and tailor it a little bit. So I really think that alone would make a tremendous difference.
Well, Mark, that really speaks to what the Texas Apartment Association Education Foundation does with our Room to Grow campaign. We really want to raise awareness about opportunities in the apartment industry for maintenance and leasing and corporate positions and our supplier partners as well, but speaking to the correct audience. And you're not going to get someone, a Gen Z person starting to enter the work, entering work in the same way you're going to get someone who, looks on in the newspaper for a job. So it's really different, and it really does matter how we are approaching this, where we're finding them, and what our messages are. And so it's really important that that you're seeing this and that people understand that difference.
Yeah, if you don't, I'd like to build on it a little. And one of the things, if you look at, and so for everyone watching this, here's an assignment. Start looking at all of the boards and postings for jobs, how you post, what the words are that you use. And you'll find that most often we will use similar language to all of our peers, and pretty much all the ads look basically the same. And if you look at them and you can compare this and then compare your own, it will say how big the company is. Want to work for a successful company, this many units, this is our portfolio size. And all we do is tell you about us. And then when you get towards the bottom, we tell you what we need, and we might mention pay and location, maybe. And so I would flip that pyramid upside down and answer this simple question: why would you want to work for us, and how will we treat you? By the way, we are a successful company and we will take good care of you. And mark my words, if you do that, you will see a significant shift in the responses that you get, because everything that you put out has its own self-filtering process. And the people will qualify themselves by how they connect with what you're posting. And so what the person wants to know, and if you look at Maslow's hierarchy or any of these, and we talk about this, let's fill the basic needs, right? Do you feel safe where you work? Can you provide for yourself? Do you have some level of fulfillment? Do you have some level of recognition? And if the answer is yes in all of those things, wonderful. Let's do that more across the industry. But it's what I call the upside down pyramid. Put what's in it for them, how you'll treat them. And a question for everyone watching this is, think about this. If pay is equal, benefits are equal, and you take a room and you put 10 tables in it with one representative from a different company at each 10 tables, and you have one prospect walk in the room, why would they want to work for you? And if you don't know, say again, Jason.
No, I love that. I was saying, I love that. Instead of, hey, if you'd like to apply, you need to sell yourself to us. No, the message should be, this is me trying to sell my company to you and how we can be able to help you out, right? And how we can make your life better.
If a company doesn't know the answer to that question, how can you communicate it to someone else?
Well, and it speaks to the generational differences as well, as culture and those types of factors are more and more important to a Gen Z and a millennial. They want to know what's in it for them and how is it going to affect what they want to do in their bigger sort of the things that are most important to them.
It is. And, there's I just like these little stories because I think we can all relate to them. But if I need life wisdom, I go to my grandparents. If I need my phone corrected, I give it to my kids and say, hey, and then they help me out. And so it's interesting to see how we look at our sources so differently, just to even get our interest, right? And just to pique our curiosity enough to communicate or contact a company. So absolutely.
It's true. I was wondering what your thoughts are on the impact of the amount of time it takes from when an applicant puts their application into the system and when they're contacted and when a first interview is. I mean, how big of an impact is that on whether the candidate will join your company or not?
So here's the thing. If you're slow in your response, you are going to have no response.
Correct.
As simple as that is. And so slow process equal a lot of no-shows. So if you think to yourself, people they aren't showing up anymore. Nowadays, people they don't show up like they used to. Well, if your process, so let's look at it from this perspective. If you consider a hot lead when someone calls to rent a home or come to your property and you respond in minutes, you're on it. You're on point. If you take a few hours, the urgency dissipates and so does your opportunity. So if you take more than 6 hours to respond to someone, you have got to correct your hiring process because it takes minutes for them to contact you. They're excited. They want to hear back. And then it takes a day or 2 or 3 or 4. And if it takes weeks to hire someone, quite honestly, I don't even know what to say. I mean, that cannot happen, especially in today's workforce. People are gone before they can even complete sentences sometimes. That's how desperate the workforce is. And so you should definitely get back to someone in minutes, and then also make a lasting impression. If we compare ourselves to the service we provide and the experience to a prospect coming in and they're wowed, what is our wow factor for the interview process? What is our wow factor or our unique proposition for the person that applies for a job? What makes us memorable? What makes that person hang up the phone or read your message and think to myself, I can't wait to find out more about this company and these people and this group. And I think hours is all you have.
Oh, I agree. I think it's important that for anybody listening, that look at your hiring process. And if you have multiple layers, and if you can empower your maintenance supervisor to be able to make a hiring decision and be able to offer an employee a job, I highly recommend it. If you have to go through 4 layers to be able to make a decision, then like you're saying, Mark, it's going to take weeks and that person's probably already gone.
Yeah, it goes again. It's counterintuitive to the most common advice for managerial hiring, because you want to hire very slow and you want to be very, and I understand that. I've done this myself for many years. But when it comes to skilled trades and technicians and service, you better be quick or they're gone. And, the other thing is, if you have a lot of turnover in your properties too, like say the people that you bring on don't last, there's a lot of questions to ask too. Number one, why? But also know that ghosting is a real thing, and it happens. And if there's a lot of turnover in positions, let's look at the interview process. And if there's a lot of no-shows, and I want to just kind of put an example of what you said, Jason, because I know we spoke about this. If there's more than 2 people involved in the hiring process, you need to bring that number down. And I have personally seen companies that take 3 to 6 weeks to hire someone. And there's 6 people between the interview for the initial contact to the final person. And I think that has to come down to no more than 2.
Agreed.
Sometimes it seems like, we say we have a people problem, that we can't get the people that we need into the industry, but sometimes it really does seem like we have a hiring problem instead, making it too complicated or expecting too much from applicants or whatever the case may be. I think how you stated that, Mark, was really helpful, of things that people can do to change that and make it a little bit easier and more effective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you look at it from a service perspective, and I often do, right? Maintenance is a task and service is an experience. But what's the experience for the person going through that process? It's the same. And the service doesn't extend to just our residents. It's internal as well. And then it's also introductory as people assimilate into your company, which is why the first day is the most important day period. If you don't give that person undivided attention, no matter how busy they are, that's your first impression. And you have to recover from bad impressions, which takes a lot more time and effort than making one in the very first initial contact. And I think we can all look at ourselves, at least I know I can, and think to myself, I could have done that better. I told someone I was really busy and I was overwhelmed, and I had self-imposed pressure and I had external pressure imposed on me to some degree. And I left the person, I hung them to dry a little bit. I didn't give them as much time as they needed, and they just don't know what to do. And so all they can do is guess based on what's worked and not gotten them in trouble in the past. And I think if we could correct that, that would make a big difference.
Definitely. I think that if you have that long drawn out process, you have multiple people involved in the hiring decision, then you're competing against some companies that might be going to job fairs and offering people positions on the spot. And that's also attractive as well, and sets a good first impression, is a company that's nimble and a company that's able to make decisions quickly and move. So I like that you brought that up.
Yeah, the ability to pivot and adapt is very important. And typically, not always, but typically, the larger the company, the slower that adaptability and to move and shift is. But, you can just do these basic, simple things, is go to people that don't know what you do and say, and ask this simple question: Jason, I need a plumber. Who should I call? You'd probably tell me a plumber. If I need an electrician, Becca, who should I call? You'd probably say, call an electrician. If I say I own an apartment community and I need some service work done to get a home ready, who do I call? Most people would be like, I'm not sure. Let me think. Let me make a call. And so if we can get that immediate thought into the mind of the general population a little bit better, we would have more people aware of the industry as a whole itself. And I think we could do a better job as an industry as a whole. And I think if the more that we can promote this as a career that's desirable, beneficial, and it's full of dignity and respect and integrity, then we'll have a much better result in the long run.
Agreed. I know that it's important to recruit great talent, but what are your thoughts on how the office team and management can help retain high caliber employees?
So, it's interesting because this comes up all the time, right? It's the us and them mentality. And even though sometimes people will say the words, we love our team, we respect them, the version of how you respect each side of the team is very different too. For example, service technicians, number one, please don't interrupt them. I cannot stress this enough during the day. It is taken by many, not all, but many, to be very disrespectful, that all you do is ask me, did I get anything done? What did you do today? Why isn't it done? How hard could it be? How long does it take? Because I have a friend or a coworker or a significant other, or I know someone in my social circle that's never met you, that's never been here, but they think it should take less time and be done better for less. And the average time, if you could write this down, if you're watching this, when you interrupt a service worker, us, from their task, the minimum time it takes to recover is 23 minutes to well over an hour. Wow. So let's say the average American works 5.5 hours out of 8, which is pretty close because a lot of it's administration, communication, travel to and from, and a variety of other interferences. You now to have 3 interruptions and you just took an hour off of a 5.5 hour workday. And ask any technician, just go ask your technicians, when is the last time you remember I didn't interrupt you, ask you to stop what you're doing and go somewhere else or redirect you in any way? When was the last time you've experienced that more than one day in a row? And I think you might be surprised by the answer.
Well, you can see by Jason and I shaking our heads, yes, nodding in agreement, that that's really why we have this podcast, this series, is so that we can help the office teams and maintenance teams work better together and help the office teams better understand numbers, like you said, the time it takes after being interrupted, or, if you're walking your property, what you can do to be helpful to the maintenance team, and so on and so forth. There's 10 episodes of this that, people can look back on to see. But so, Jason, I'm sure this is your next question, but as your training, Mark, and your sort of experience, are there key things that the office staff can do in addition to not interrupting while maintenance techs are working on a job that you think are really impactful and that people need to hear?
Yeah, so a couple things, and you can write this down if you like, but if you have to have realistic resources. Number one, you have to have the tools and equipment. So for example, this comes up a lot. Hey, I'm teaching an HVAC class. How many of you have more than one set of gauges on your property in the room? And pretty much no hands go up. So I want to paint an image. Like you go to a community and you see a building being built and there's 5 people on the roof framing the building and there's one hammer and they pass the hammer around one at a time, person to person. When we don't give our technicians the tools they need, we're kind of doing that to them. There should at minimum be like one set of everything per person, so all of the people can be working at the same time and what they need to do. But to think that it's a standard business practice in service industries to have one set of tools that pass around from technician to technician is not realistic at all. And, we don't even have phones for more than a couple of years. How can you have a set of gauges that are 10 years old and expect them to work? It's just not realistic. And so I would start with realistic resources, realistic timeframes based on your own property, not other people's opinions that have never been there. So realistic resources, realistic timeframes, and realistic expectations. And I know Jason, you've been in the field for a long time. Sometimes 9 out of 10 water heaters get replaced in 2 hours. Maybe where you work, it's 90 minutes. Maybe where you work, it's 60 minutes. Every once in a while, you get one that takes 2.5 days. And it's just how it is. And so we have to also understand that there's a lot of variables in the workforce to get realistic results. So realistic resources, realistic timeframes, realistic results, but you have to give everybody the things they need. And the other thing that comes up, and I mean often, is the way that the office or people speak to the service technicians in general. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a class and people speak to me very candidly because I have no level of influence or consequence over them. And if you have the luxury of consequence, it's difficult for people to be honest with you if they ever feel like retaliation might be an option. And a common comment I get is, I just wish people in the office would stop talking to me like I'm 5 years old and have no idea what I'm doing. And now you may say to yourself, well, I don't think I do that. Trust me, far more people do it than they realize. And we have to really ask ourselves a couple of things too. Like, if you don't want to be interrupted on the phone when you're speaking to a prospect, why would a technician want to be interrupted when they're working with a resident taking care of a service request? It's a reasonable thing, right? And so, but when it's put like that, it can sometimes hit a little bit differently. And we say all of these things with the best intentions to everybody watching us. We want you to have an amazing service team. We want you to do well. We want you to be well. We want you to feel well. But we have to really ask ourselves, can I be a little bit better on the property? So the people at the service team that work with my company. So that is a kind of a long answer, Becca, a little bit, and Jason, but I think those are the simple things, because your skill set is not enough. Your mindset has to be important, and it has to come out in the behaviors that are acceptable, inspiring, motivating, and respectful. And the more that you build people up, the less it's a lot harder to be perceived as tearing them down. And so I think we should start working on how we communicate with the same urgency and importance to our internal members, our teammates, as much as our customers.
Definitely. Respect between both office and maintenance is key. Recognition is important as well, right? I mean, if you're not being recognized for the work that you're doing, then how would you want to, have motivation every morning to come to work? So I wanted to hear a couple, minutes, your thoughts on how we can better recognize our teams.
So recognition is very important. And there's a book I'm going to recommend and so if you have a pen or a pencil, please write this down. It's the 5 Languages of Love. Now you may think, what in the world would you mention that book? Here's the essence of the book. Everybody appreciates or feels appreciation differently. So just because you say something, the words may not be important to the person. An act of service might be more important to them. Recognition might be more important to them. And at the end of the day, we really are in a relationship-based business, right? The way we all interact with each other, and then we generate recurring revenue from that based on the experiences and things that result from it. So high performers want to be evaluated. High performers want you to inspect what they do. They want you to recognize their work. And the other thing that high performers want, and they really need you, is to get rid of the bad employees. And if you keep toxic, negative people on your team, the good people just quietly leave. They don't even invest their time. And the only fire that burns is the one that you put fuel in. And so you have to figure out which one you fuel more, right? And someone would like to write this down too, is what you encourage is what you multiply, knowingly and unknowingly, right? And so inaction is encouragement. Action is encouragement. So which one are we encouraging on the team? So if you want high performance, you have to address these things, but recognition is different to everybody, and you have to figure out what that is. And so I hope that answers the question, but I would definitely go get that book. It is insightful, and I think you'll read it and say it and have some reflection and go, I didn't realize that about me too.
Put a link to it in the chat.
Okay, excellent. You brought up a good point in our discussion the other day. You were talking about techs don't want pizza. That was an interesting fact that you brought up.
So let me say this as frankly and as polite and kindly as possible. Technicians want meaningful change. They don't want pizza for lunch. Yeah. I cannot tell you. I wish some people could be in the room. It's such a point of like a contention that it's a joke. But please don't serve pizza for lunch. Do something a little bit meaningful for other than like serving a buffet or a great meal to the rest of the team. You guys get, $5, $10 pizzas again for the 40th time. And I travel all over the country, and I'm very fortunate and blessed to do so. And I have to tell you, 99% of the time, the technicians, there's 50 of them in a room, we get pizzas and sodas. And I don't know about you, but that's not food that I really eat very often at all, if at all. I don't think I've had a soda in 10 years, And so to consistently be fed those things while being told that you're exactly the same, we love and respect you. And let me just say this, sometimes the small things do make a difference. Like if you've ever thought to yourself in any relationship, personal, professional, it doesn't matter. I should have seen those small red flags a little sooner. I think we can all say that. The small little things are very often the things that have a biggest impact, that send a meaning that's more consistent and thorough and deep than we really consider. And I'm not saying to do anything unrealistic, but definitely don't serve pizza. Get something a little more interesting. And there's a ton of great food out there.
Yeah. I love this conversation between recognition and respect and not interrupting your teams. It's all great points to be able to help foster a great relationship between the office and management and maintenance. So one of the things you also talked about was training. You said there was a fact about training that you wouldn't mind sharing.
No, and I'm glad you asked. And so I'm going to ask you to grab your pen again. But I've been a professional jiu-jitsu coach for many years. I have an academy. I have hundreds of students, and we bring them to local, regional, and national levels of competition. I've been in the multifamily industry for now 30 years over, and it has a lot to do with training. But people that train win. People that don't train don't. And it is that simple, but it's not that easy. And I've never met a champion in anything say to themselves or their coach, you know what? I really don't need training. I've done this for a long time. And yet that's a common reply that we get when it's time to go to training, because our culture, our business culture allows that to take place, because they've been breathing air on earth for so long that they don't need training. And then they go to the training, me included, and you're like, wow, I still train. I don't understand how other people don't train. I've been a coach for a long, long time. And I love to have the people on a team that are fanatics about training. Now, if you look at organizations across the board, which I spend a tremendous amount of time doing, pretty much every training organization or association that has anything to do with professional, personal employee development, the lowest amount of training that they say a person should have in a business is 40 hours per year. That's the most minimum. Now, the minimum in multifamily, from my own 18 years of research, which exclude certifications are not training. They just transfer liability. They are not skill development. Training is less than 11 hours per year. 11. We have got to do a better job. And the challenge is, from a manager's perspective, often, or supervisor, is, oh my goodness, I'm already short-staffed. I can't do without you. And now you want to go to training. And training is expensive. But in my experience, the behavior that results in poor training or no training is far more expensive than sending them to a class that costs a few $100s.
Agreed. Make time for training. That's been one of our other conversations that we've had on these calls, and it's important. Make time for it. So, I have enjoyed this time with you, Mark. And before we go, do you have any last takeaways that you would like to share with the group?
Sure. So, the thing is, and thank you to everyone watching this, because we really, from the bottom of our hearts, want to do a great job and be a resource to help our industry flourish, right? And one of the things I do at home and it's kind of, to me, it's like a little therapeutic activity, but I garden at home, right? And I have a garden out there, and I grow fruits and vegetables. And I want to leave everyone with an analogy. When I first started growing foods and fruits and things in my garden, I just wanted tomatoes. I just wanted figs. I just wanted blueberries. And I planted them, and I just expected fruit. And what I came to realize after slowly taking the life out of all of my plants and vegetables and shrubs and trees is that I needed to grow the soil. I needed to grow the medium in which things flourish, not just put good things into a poor medium, poor soil. So once I started to grow the medium and you grow your company and you grow your culture and you grow the interactions and you grow the benefits and all of the things that feed the roots of the behavior, then you get fruits and vegetables that bear seeds that multiply. And so if you look at your company like that and say, am I growing the thing that when I put everyone in, they flourish? And of course, some will be more than others. I just appreciate the time, both of you and everyone. I just to get on here and speak from the heart and let you know what my business observations are. And I hope to see someone in the field come up, say hello, shake hands. And I appreciate the privilege and the honor of being on this.
Oh,
Thanks, Mark.
The privilege has been all of ours. So if anybody that's listening is interested in hearing more from Mark, or you're hearing more about this conversation topic, you can catch him at the upcoming TAA1 conference in Houston, as well as on his website, serviceteamtraining.com and maintenancevideos.com. So thank you very much again for your time, Mark, and it's been a pleasure talking to you.
And if you haven't registered yet for the conference, you can visit TAA.org and learn all about it. Mark will be speaking on Thursday, April 28th in Houston. So we'd love to see you there, and you can come up and see him and shake his hand and say hello. So thanks everybody so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.